Hello, can you hear me? If you can, would you come up a little closer, please? It's like church. We want everybody to be close together. Well, I'm not going to hold us up who are on time for everybody else. Good morning again. I'm Reverend Ulysses Barton. I'm one of the assistant. Am I an assistant? No, I'm an associate dean for the California State Baptist Convention under our dean, Dr. Rondell Leggett. And this morning I have the opportunity to introduce our lecturer. Our lecturer is my pastor, and I can say that I'm his senior associate. I'm his oldest associate out of 10 of us, so at Beth Eden Baptist Church in Oakland, California. Our speaker this morning is Reverend Dr. Dwight Webster. Dr. Webster hails from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all the way from back east to out here in the west. Dr. Webster is a graduate of Howard University, Colgate-Rochester Divinity School, where he also served the time as the interim dean there. He graduated from Howard with a degree in mathematics, and then went to Divinity School at Colgate-Rochester and on to the GTU in Berkeley for his PhD. This is a perfect course for Dr. Webster to teach or to lecture on, transitioning. Before he joined us at Beth Eden 7 or 8 years ago, he was a pastor in New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans, Louisiana. Amen. We got people from New Orleans back there. Amen. At Christian Unity Baptist Church. Well, that church and his house got blown up twice. And when I say blown up, I don't mean fireworks. I mean wind, rain. And it's totally destroyed his house and his church twice. And he rebuilt both of them. He rebuilt both of them. So he has experienced some transitions in life, and he knows how to handle them. So if you want to know something about being changed and dependent on God to help get you back where you need to be or where you're supposed to be, this is the man you need to hear it from. None other than Reverend Dr. Dwight Webster. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Barton, for those kind and generous words. I want to acknowledge the Reverend Dr. Rodney Leggett, our president, the Reverend Dr. Rondell Leggett, the Congress Dean, Sister Eula Lewis, the General Secretary, and then the angel of the esteemed Mount Calvary Baptist Church, the erudite Reverend Dr. Claiborne Lee Jr., the host pastor. And I am just honored to be able to share before you. And I am a risk taker, but what I want to do is get a couple things out of the way. Reverend Barton is passing out the first of two handouts I have. And it's a fact sheet. And on this fact sheet, many of the things that Pastor Reese talked about, that's the data to back that up in terms of what the transitions are that are going on in this world. And that comes from the Pew Research. I don't think there's any more esteemed center than them, and so you can count on that. And on the bottom of the back there is a hyperlink, and that will take you to the entire report that you can use at your leisure. The second thing I want to do is I learned from some of my seminary professors something we call show and tell. And I think it's good for us to be able to take a look at things And I just learned from Reverend Barton, I'm only 7 years in as pastor of Beth Eden, but I served there 40 years ago under Reverend Dr. Gillette O. James as the minister of youth and young adults. So I know something about it, but what I didn't know was that Reverend Barton had used one of the resources that I'm lifting up to you. I am a church member by Tom Rayner. This draws distinctions between being a member of a church and a member of a club. Is that enough said? The second resource I want to, let me show it to you again now. Again, my show and tell. I will get over my nervousness in a minute, because when I'm in such high cotton, you know, I'm from the north. I ain't used to high cotton, but nonetheless. So this is what that looks like. You can go through this book in a sitting. You can read it in a sitting, and that will be enlightening to you. A 75-year-old resource, I'm trying to get all this stuff out of the way, by J.B. Phillips. Some of us as pastors and others, we use Phillips' commentary or his interpretations of the Bible, but the title of this, it's a guide for believers and skeptics alike. Your God is too small. And when it comes to change, one of the things that we have got to deal with is the conceptualization of God. Obviously, you don't have anything to do with the size of God. But the way we see God, the way we internalize what we think about God, and then how we project that onto situations, circumstances, and other people is something that really needs to be addressed. So I'm using this as we speak in Bible study. And tonight's Bible study, one of his chapters, I don't know whether you would appreciate it or not, but it's called The Pale Galilean. That's if your God is too small. Two more recent resources that I want to lift up and share with you. And I've read through this book. I took my time, and I have a good friend, Iris, that goes to one of our churches, who sells for David C. Cook. I think it's Cook. Yeah, David C. Cook. And so I go to her station, and she turns me on to some of the more recent resources. If you're going to be in a church and deal with a contemporary situation, you need to understand some contemporary realities. And I highly recommend this. This is not a Bible or the Bible. This is a resource. It's a New York Times bestseller by Preston Sprinkle. And I tested this with some young people, some of the concepts that are in there, and it resonated with them. This is called Embodied. Embodied. Transgender identities, the church, and what the Bible has to say. Embodied. Transgender identities, the church, and what the Bible has to say. Now, this is not your run-of-the-mill average run every day. This ain't your BYPU kind of approach. This is thoroughly researched and thoroughly documented. And so if you're going to read it, as some of the elders used to say, read it from kiver to kiver, okay? Don't pick and choose. And another one is the lens that we see, do, understand, and receive many things is culture. It's culture. And this is another resource, and it's by John Stonestreet and Brent Kunkel, A Practical Guide to Culture, helping the next generation navigate today's world. Again, for a long time, David C. Cook was not my favorite publisher. But they have stepped up their game, and I'm telling you, they're putting out some serious resources. So I'm sharing all this with you in the beginning in case you have to nod off, while I'm presenting, or go into a stupor, or have to say, help him, Jesus. At least you'll go away with that, and you'll have some some resource. And I also apologized already to Reverend Reese, because I did not want him to think that I came to listen to his presentation just so I can so I could appropriate the things that he had to present. I took some serious note of the scripture, Jeremiah 29, 10 through 14, Philippians 3, 12 through 16, and the charge I took in terms of transitions, making sense of life's changes. And so I started out talking about change. I started out writing about change, transitions, and transformation, and I didn't get quite to transformation. And when I got here, I'm glad I didn't, because that is well covered. The only thing constant in this life is change. That's not going to change. That's consistent, and that's constant. And I have to pause because of where I actually am. And if you, however you react to this after we go from here, and I hope I don't embarrass you, Reverend Barton. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone will change. Nothing stays the same. The young become the old, and mysteries do unfold. But that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in this life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the sky, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Rain comes from the clouds, and sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. There are not many things in this life you can be sure of, except Jesus is our friend, and he's coming back again, and we sure do need him now. Jesus is my friend. I know he's coming back again, and we sure do need him now. Everything must change. That was in 1974 that musical genius Quincy Jones, am I going to get thrown out of church here? Released an album entitled Body Heat, which included Bernard Eichner, and he wrote those lyrics, and he sang those lyrics, and a whole bunch of people have covered that. And the reason I use it is because of its truth and its applicability. A theologian once said this about the existential reality in which we live. Something abides, something changes. Which is which, and how do you tell? Something abides, something changes. Which is which, and how do you tell? Conventional or folk wisdom says the more things change, the more they stay the same. And many of us have heard, be the change you want to see in the world. But that was actually put forth by Arlene Lance in 1970 and not Mahatma Gandhi. Here's what he actually said. We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we would change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man, woman, boy, or girl changes one's own nature, so does the attitude of the world change toward them. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do. Out of that was extracted, even by his family members, be the change you want to see. But to deal with the changing of this world and the changing of the guard, we no longer can afford to look at young people only as the leaders and the church of tomorrow. They are the self-aware, visionary leaders of today's church and today's community. I watched a young person, Ashley Gilbert Gardier, grow from a girl to womanhood in our church and subsequently ascend to the position of presidency of the storied research and advocacy nonprofit organization Policy Link. This brilliant young woman of faith embraced the mantle of leadership held by legendary attorney and civil rights advocate Angela Glover Blackwell, who founded the organization. Gardier said recently, upon reflection of the headwinds of the present state of affairs, she said this: we, the people, must become the founders of a new nation yet to be realized. We looked inward, asking ourselves what kind of leadership this moment needs from each of us. We were met with 6 answers: foresight, radical imagination, audacity, humility, love for all, and self-renewal. I think that bears repeating. 6 answers: foresight, radical imagination, audacity, humility, love for all, and self-renewal. She then continued, I believe that if we want to build something different, we must be something different. Just as those before us dared to claim freedom once thought impossible, we too must rise into power that is ours to carry forward. It is our time to lead the way. And you can insert yourself there and say it is your time to lead. This is, I believe, what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called the fierce urgency of now. Let me stop right here. Let me just say this. I know this is a lecture, and I've already breached protocol one time. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, or even a reflection, please feel free as carefully as you can to stop me and let's enrich the discussion. There'll be some Q&A at the time, but let's make this interactive if necessary. And why? Because we quote the words of hymns because we know that it's in your being and your understanding. So hymnist Jenny Wilson said, time is filled with swift transition. Naught of earth unmoved can stand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. I want to thank Reverend Barton for passing out this first handout from the Pew Research. This is a sobering collection of data because it says in I think, a non-argumentable way, what we're facing today. So since I said I want some interaction from you, in your mind, in your experience, and we'll just take it, just a few, what's changing today? Or what about what has changed today is disturbing you? What's changed? Something abides, something changes. Which is which? How do you tell? Yeah. Oh, you didn't know you had school today. Okay. Yes. The lack of church commitment. Thank you. What has changed? Yes, ma'am. The lack of compassion for others. Okay. I think I have something that speaks to that. Yes.
The audacity of the governmental systems and the oppression.
The audacity of the governmental systems and the oppression. Anybody know the name Walter Wink? Biblical scholar. A lot of folk thought he was kind of crazy. He's written a series of books, unmasking, engaging, naming the powers, and he talks about the angel that our culture and society and even church has. And part of that is implicated in what you said. If we go along to get along, then we are going along. Anybody else? Just a reflection. I don't have any gold stars to give out. Denying the power of God. You want to say more about that? Or if you don't, I will. Where is the power of God? We've been told who God is. We by culture. This is what I'm talking about. Our notions of God are framed by culture. Paul Tillich talks about the interaction between religion and culture. Religion is the substance of culture, and culture is the form of religion. There's two Venn diagrams. They overlap. Now, any of y'all been to the Vatican in Rome? Okay. Have you looked up into the ceiling? Do you see God up there? No, you don't see God up there. You got good eyes. But when you look up there, when you see something or someone represented, what do you see? An old white man. And there's research to support this. When we ask anybody, almost regardless of ethnicity, describe God. Charlton Heston. I guess I've made my point. Or any of those other, that has been so subliminal. And it has crept into our mindset and our psyche. And we have to learn how to disabuse ourselves of those notions, because what happens is we limit God. Because that picture of God sitting up in the ceiling is naked, touching a man who was also, and what is that? What can that God do for you? So when you come up against the government, when you come up against Doge, when you come up against, there may be Tesla drivers out here, I'm not sure. You get frustrated, but it's because of how we have internalized God, and you've got to change that. But you have to identify it before you can change it. Perhaps this all sounds too simplistic, an approach to deal with the inevitability of change, of transition in and through our lives, and the necessity of addressing these realities such as AI. And I was going to speak to this later, and scientifically verifiable reality like climate change, which I won't try to focus on as an issue, but it's a reality. Come on, this is 2025. Science is not God, okay? But if we are not careful, we will worship at the altar of something that will control us in like fashion. And I'm going to skip to the end on something and say that my issue around, and I'm loving this. Look at this. How many screens we got? All this. I apply the word to that. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise ye the Lord. Technology ought to be the instrumentality that we use. Where is it? I like that commercial. When the two elders come to the house of the young people and they got a box and they hand it to here. None of this works. I'm so old, Brothers Leggett, that I tried to start a computer science major at Howard, but I was not at the right time. The building, the room that housed those early computers is now compressed into this. About a good maybe a third of this room of computers and computer power is not. This ain't a phone. I'm sorry. This is not a phone. It can do that, but this is a computer. And this is not even, y'all need to do something about that, Reverend Bart. This is not even the top of the line. I love my Android. And I ain't mad, except when it shuts off. But we have to change our mindset and begin to understand, well, that's of the world. What world are you talking about? In one of the Bible studies I use, has anybody seen the movie Contact, which starred Jodie Foster? In that movie, the very first scene is a zoom, a panoramic zoom that starts in a discrete point of the earth, and then it backs out from the planet through the solar system, through a part of the Milky Way galaxy, and it keeps on going. And then when you think about what we are as specks, what is God that God is mindful of us? Yet God is so expansive, God goes beyond all of that, yet God is so intimate, God will fit into our hearts. Now, if your God can't do that, first of all, your God ain't flexible enough. But more importantly, the concept of God has got to change. The flooding of our neighborhoods and communities with illicit drugs, with all of the ills, disruptions, dysfunctionalities that accompanied them, these all exacerbated problems of alcoholism and rampant racism, sexism, class struggle, abounding iniquity. That's when the love, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. The abating love and compassion, economic health and justice disparities, socio-political inequality, xenophobia, homophobia, food and shelter insecurity, disenfranchisement, and disappointment. All of those things have assaulted not just our streets and communities, but our churches. And we've got to change the framework in our mindset with how we approach that. So along with concerns of families, men, women, girls, boys, all who seem to be at risk in one way or another, the question might well be placed, where do we start? What do we do? I want to submit and suggest to you, and hope that I do not offend your sensibilities, that the starting point is prayer. Yeah, I didn't get as much as I thought I was going to get there. I got an amen. Maybe we don't even understand prayer. My foundational definition of prayer is practicing the presence of God. Not sitting and laying down, or but If we are to pray without ceasing, that means that everything that has breath, we've got to really change our approach to everything that we do. God gave me a space to park. I pray every time I go on the road and ask God to give me a space. Now, I may be construed as being lazy or whatever. And that was even before I got a double knee replacement and arthritis in both hips. But I asked God, because that's what if we are going to make sense of change in this world, if we're going to be able to manage transition, and I'll leave transformation to you, but I'll say more about it later, we have got to pray. And I want to offer, and then you can pass out the next, I want to offer a prayer that is well known, but once again, we don't have the full transcript of it. This original version was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, who was born in 1892 and died in 71. This is the full original copy of the Serenity Prayer. God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. That's the Serenity Prayer. That's the entirety of the Serenity Prayer. And I'm passing that out for you so that you can reflect on it. The first part is fine. It's good. But there's more to it. And I never knew that Jesus was in that. To my brother's standpoint. Because we sanitize stuff and take God and Jesus out of so much. Change. I'm going to hit this right quick and go on past it. The definition of change is to make something or someone different, to alter or to modify, to replace something or something with something else, especially of the same kind, to make the form, nature, content, future course, etc., of something different from what it is or from what it would be if it were left alone. That's change. As a noun, it's the instance of making or becoming different. If we were talking about change with respect to money, we might say, I was so broke, I couldn't even change my mind. There are sources that talk about there are 4 kinds of fundamental change. There's desirable and undesirable change. There's slow and fast change. There's reversible and irreversible change. There's physical and chemical change. And to be sure, we understand that they manifest in different ways. Metamorphosis, the caterpillar to the butterfly. Maturation, that's change, is growing, hopefully growing and not having arrested development. Conversion, and then once again, I'm trying to get paid, Reverend Reese here. Transformation on your side. So transition then is the process of changing from one state or condition or even disposition to another. We may think more of transition as a change within a system or a change from one place to another. On the contemporary or socio-cultural scene, transition takes on a whole different connotation and meaning. And whether we deal with it or not, even the notion of that truncated word trans is something that we're going to have to take note of. Let me give you a shortcut on this. I don't believe in that. I just believe that. Well, what we used to call one thing, we now call intersex. A hermaphrodite is what the term was back in the day. People are born with what we traditionally would call male and female reproductive systems in one entity. Okay, no, that's too much. Some of you scientific folk, well, that's only a minuscule portion. Okay, let's go to biology. Let's go to genetics. I grew up just like you did. I'm trying to get you to change on something. If we talking about a man, we talking about an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. If we're talking about, like my mama used to say, a woman, she wouldn't even put the W on there. If you're talking about a woman, you're talking about two X chromosomes. That's not science, y'all. Because a man who exhibits what or presents as males have traditionally, there are genes on both of those chromosomes that contribute. And the same thing for a woman. It is not simplistic as XX and YY. And what happens when there's another chromosome? I'll leave it on. So I want us to think about change by starting at allowing our minds to be expanded. And to understand, my mother used to say, the more you know the less. We don't know everything. We may act like we know everything, but we don't know everything. And what we have to do is increase our respect for individuals, regardless of how they present. Let me give you quick. We had a young person join our church in New Orleans, and that person came with this is old school, with a ready for the world haircut and things, and all this stuff. He presented so differently, and my folks, and when I saw them twist there, I said, don't you say a word. Not one word. Within 2 months, and they were obedient, within 2 months, you almost couldn't recognize that person. And that person became one of my best musicians. If you leave folk alone and understand that whatever change is absolutely and utterly needed, God is Lord and Master over that. And how are you going to presume to do what God's not doing? Let me keep going. When we think of transition of families, it used to be a nuclear family, the mama and the daddy and the children. I don't know how you get 2.4, but nonetheless, that was it. And all you social workers and sociologists, the incipient and augmented and all that other stuff. But now the scene is different. We've got singles who are families. And if your ministry can't change to embrace a single as an individual family, you're going to run them away. We've got single-headed families, and they're not all women. You got grandparents raising their children's children. You've got all kinds of differences, and that we have to equip ourselves to pivot and deal with that. You'll get that on tomorrow. We think of groups and organizations, agencies, companies, and corporations. And when we think of the church, most often we think of the church as institution, when the church is an organism. Living, breathing. Pastor, we got to follow the law of the land. Yeah, we do. We do. But there is no law higher than the word. And if the word says this, we have to find a way to set up whatever it is we do in the church so that we do not violate the word. Now, King and others said, well, there are some unjust laws, and then we'll deal with that. Now, I guess you don't even have to deal with that with the IRS. IRS just say, y'all can endorse any political person that you want to. And that is because of Christian nationalism. Y'all be very careful. Be very careful, because what is given can be taken away. Managing transition requires that we've got to meet challenges by faith. And we've got to anticipate change by attending to its requirements, resources, roadmaps, and reviews. And also, we must look at possible repercussions. I've got some folk that I'm trying, they know there's some things that are going on that are wrong. They want it changed. They want it transit. I said, but if you go the way you're going, there are going to be some unintended consequences. I don't know about some of y'all, but the way we were trained in seminary when I came back by Fred and Barney, Flintstone and Rubble. That's how old I am. Okay. You can go into a church and you can change it. You can do two things. You can come in and you can come in with a wrecking ball. And you can tear up everything. Everything. And I see I didn't bring my other book too. My goodness. And that's Church Transition. I must have left that. But you can do that, and there may not be anything left standing, including you. Or you can come in and learn who the people are, know the history, see where they've come from, see where they are, know what's going on. And the reason I say you start with prayer is because just because it looks one way to you does not mean that that is the reality. And so we've got to be patient with that. And young whippersnappers, we come in, the Lord said, and we do all, whatever, I remember I was in Rochester, and Enon Baptist Church was where I was working. And they had bought the church from a Presbyterian church. So, Presbyterians, big stone edifice and all that other stuff. And the stained glass had a Haight-Ashbury Jesus on, with the Lord Jesus haircut. And so I said, don't you know that ain't Jesus? I was all in my liberation and stuff. And I'll never forget one, and bless you deacons who know who you are and what you're supposed to do. One of the deacons came to me and said, Reverend, it's a good thing that you're going to that school up there. And you're getting all that. And so get all the sociology and all the psychology and all. But understand that we don't see Jesus there. We only look through that to see Jesus. Now, that ought to fix your iconography. And it ought to give you an understanding for communions or denominations that's not your own. They ain't worshiping that. Let me keep going. Yeah. So there's some other things that we need to consider, that when you're preparing for change and transition, you've got to maintain an attitude of gratitude and graciousness for the unexpected rewards that will come because you were faithful in listening to what the Lord said. I had to stop reading a book that was called, I think, The Student Prince by Machiavelli. No, not the prince, not that prince. The Student Prince. I had to stop reading it because I was enjoying it too much. It said when you come up against your opposition, you cut them off at the knees. I said, yup. Yeah. Or let me go more contemporary. A movie called Ender's Game. Have you seen that? Little boy defending the earth against insectoid invaders and so on and so forth. Ender is taught to defend himself, that when somebody comes at him, that when they come at him, he makes sure that they can't come back again. Again, to your point about transformational leadership. That is not going to work. And if you maintain an attitude of gratitude and graciousness, you will get unexpected rewards instead of trying to apologize for unintended consequences. So managing transition means we got to plan for change. It means planning in spite of change to the plans that you put in motion. And plan to change whatever it is that you plan, because no one and nothing stays the same. But I reiterate, the most important piece in the toolkit ought to be prayer. And prayer like the prayer of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Nevertheless, not what I will, not my will, but thy will be done. That's a prayer of preparation that's worth more than American Express. Don't leave home without it. Planning for transitions must be, and let me hasten on so there'll be some time left. For transitions must be at the very least strategic. And I know this is old school. There are other iterations of this, but this is, again, part of my training, that for transition, in some way, shape, or form, there should be some kind of strategic plan. Let me go back before that. We used to be taught, make a long-term, long-range plan, okay? And before you got to the third year, everything had changed, and nothing worked. So let me just say quickly that with a strategic plan, you must start out with, you must have first an executive or an authoritative mandate. Because if you don't, whatever you come up with can be challenged and taken down. But for the sake of change alone, you can't do that individually, or your clique can't do that. Oh, did I say? Are there cliques in the church? Oh, no, those are affinity groups or... But in this process, there must be and you have it already, a vision that is cast. And if you don't have an executive mandate, then you're going to have bunches of visions, and they're all going to conflict. A vision that is cast, mission that is adhered to, goals that are set, and objectives that are smart. How are they smart? They're specific, they're measurable, they're realistic, and they are timely. Those are smart objectives. So then you go to strategy, smart. Specific, measurable, realistic, and timely or time-bound. And then strategies, how are you going to do it? And then implement, how are you going to implement it? And what are the tactics that you're going to use? Because you can have all of that right, and with jacked up tactics, you can work against yourself. Oh, I'm saying something. You should also adopt some core values that you are not going to change from, no matter what it is. What's a core value? And I started with, Jesus is my friend. And he's coming back again. And we need, if we ever needed the Lord before. So whatever iteration, I know you might be more corporate minded to do core values or hospitality but somehow you've got to agree on a set of core values that everybody can sign on to and will not deviate. Now, if you don't want to do that, I'm not saying that you have to go home, but you may have to leave from here. What are you saying, preacher? Let me go to Psalm 127, verse 1. Unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watch persons stand guard in vain. You can be a legend in your own mind. Let me keep going. Then you go through a SWOT analysis. And the SWOT analysis means you look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you can do that, or you can have somebody help mentor you through that. But transition's not going to work unless you do that, because you're going to be all over the page. And then, once you get all of that, and let me say one thing. In community organizing, don't hang out with the deficit model. When we go to communities or when we go to projects, well, now we're going to change this because this here is wrong with that. And you wrong, and you been wrong, all your people wrong, everybody you've ever seen is wrong. That's the deficit model. Let's move to something more positive. The assets model, the strength. What do we know about what's good? What can we build on? What can we advance? I'm gonna keep on going. When you got a collection of that, you can identify key issues. And that's the advantage over a long-term plan, because key issues can change with the exigencies of life. It was a key issue 20 years ago. But it ain't today. And one we never even saw is available. Implementation requires, don't put anything into effect if you do not have some way to evaluate it. Implementation without evaluation is just, I feel to believe. Evaluation gives feedback. And what is feedback? It's part of communication theory. You encode, you send it out across the medium, but there may be noise that interrupts it. It is received and then decoded, and then feedback is sent so that you can make course corrections and adjustments. Let me stop right there. Anything? Conjure up? Did I stir up any waters or kick up anything? Any thoughts come to you? I'm not looking for any particular answer. I'm just looking for some response. Oh, so we got different strokes. What you talking about, Willis? I'm just trying to check in with you and see if any of this is resonating with you, or if there are some adjustments we may need to make. Because I do not assume that you have come here as tabula rasa. You're not a clean slate. You've got experiences, you've got expertise, you have knowledge. Yes? Yeah, what happened maybe even a half century ago, but a long time ago, doing long-range planning or long-term planning, and that would be it. There, as it was taught, there are no provisions in there for course correction. You got landmarks, you got certain things that you want to hit. But that's why I use the hymn. Time is filled with swift transition. The landscape is changing so quickly. There's a time black folk would have never thought about having a church with a pastor and a church administrator. What you talking about, Willis? Am I the pastor? You gonna overrule me? But we've got to be able to be flexible enough. So let's go to the plan itself. Depending on what research you did, again, that's why I passed out that. There was a time when the church was the center of the community. Everything revolved around what was going on in the community. And even the devil, even the folk who didn't go to church, they had respect for the church. I don't care what you did. The eagle flies on Friday. Saturday, I go out to pray. Early Sunday morning. Y'all ain't seen the movie Sinners, have you? Yeah. And so what happens now is Pew Research and others will say the vast majority of our young people are nuns. No, not religious women in habits, but when you ask what is your religious affiliation, they check N-O-N-E, none. That doesn't mean that they don't esteem God. That doesn't mean that, and that you can't do the same thing they're not coming to BYPU. They're not coming to BTU. They're not coming to Baptist Youth Fellowship, whatever it is. They're not even coming to scouting anymore. So the plans for your growth and your development, we had a world when there were scouts. And I'm saying scouts, not Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I said scouts, because even that changed. So if strategic planning incorporates the best of long-range planning because it's research-based, it's data-driven. But you identify key issues and you deal with them by consensus, so that somebody else who understands the changing and shifting landscape and say, wait a minute, this has present. I left high school. I graduated from high school in 1969. In June of 1969. By September of 1969, drugs had so invaded our suburban neighborhood, Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, on the dividing line of Lansdowne and Yeadon, Pennsylvania, down from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, outside of West Philadelphia. It came and completely upended our neighborhood. And then whatever plans we had and whatever we were doing, all that stuff had to change. Not that the plan itself was bad, but it was not, it was robust, but it wasn't flexible. Does that make sense? Any other comments? So I would suggest an incremental approach, and now these are my Walmart words here, that we consider theopraxis. And what theopraxis is faith in action. It's your lived faith. If you talk the talk, then you need to walk the walk. You know, the day time's out. We're not going to attract any young people or any other people if we just say do as I say and not as I do. So they have to see when we, all right, I'll do this. When we were working in the streets in the Take 'em Down NOLA, which was taking down the Confederate monuments, Robert E. Lee and all them folk, some other people took credit for stuff that was done by others. Do you know who the vast majority of our foot soldiers were? They were nuns. Tatted, pierced. Why are you going to buy pants that are raggedy and faded from the store and pay for them? That's your business. That's your business. Those were our stalwart warriors, and they were fearless because they had messed around and read the book and said, this is what we ought to do. And then we had white people, it's not for you, but we had white folk that was part of our movement, and they went back to their churches. And we asked them, well, why would you be hanging out with us? He said, because we left our church because they weren't doing this. And they didn't try to join our church. They knew it. They went back to their church to transform their church. Just like Jesus said, I healed you, now going back to your peeps. Now I want to go with you. No. Go back to them. And let them know. 3 notions, I'm almost done here. Ooh, yeah. That occurred to me is essential in managing internal transition. You've got to set, lay out, and lay down a foundation that should be biblical. That is biblical. To Reverend Barton's point, when I came to Christian Unity in New Orleans, we ended up having our church in a bowling alley. And it was elevated, and it had corrugated metal sides and roof. And so I dubbed it the Tin Top Tabernacle. And there were people who had bowled there, that had skated there, that had bingo called there. And before we moved in there, it was a Bobby Blue Bland blues concert venue. But when I went in, God told me, because people said, that's no kind of church. You know, we had a steeple. God said, instead of worrying about building the building, build the body. And the way to build the body was to lay that foundation. My daddy was brilliant, but he didn't go past 3rd grade. But I used to go to work with him. He was a construction worker. But my father, Claude Webster, could build a house from the foundation to the roof and all of the systems within. And he did not go past formal education of 3rd grade. And you know I love my daddy because I had my own little tool bag. Let me go on. So somebody might water, somebody might plant, somebody might water, but it's God that gives the increase. Again, cast your vision by strategic planning. Watch this. Habakkuk 2:2 says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets that a runner may read it." That means while the runner is running that they can read. What you've written is so clear and so plain that they can see it on the run. Let me keep going. And then set priorities for church growth and development. And I learned this from E.K. Bailey and Pastor Stuckey in Berkeley. In the leadership, Christ gave those four or five, whatever they are, ministries. But what they were for was key. For the equipping of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for edifying and building up the body. And I want to, I'm almost done here. That we set priorities in church, and this has got to change, because we have it bass-ackward. That's how we have it. The first priority ought to be people. People are the primary, and even universities know that. If you have no students, what do you have? If you don't have any people's business in the pews, what do you have? So persons must be the highest priority, the first priority, where you're not counting numbers, but you're making numbers count. Multi-generationally, intergenerationally, and whole person ministry. Secondly, programs, ministries, auxiliaries, service. Here are the three iterations that they ought to be. First, creator facing. If you've got a program or a ministry and it's not first creator facing God, what are you doing it for? So it's creator facing, like worship. We worship as though it's and now let me introduce for all of your viewing pleasure, the esteemed and erudite pastor of the whole world. Take it away, Dr. Barton. And he comes rising up. God is the audience. That's what I mean by creator facing. God is the audience for worship. Congregation facing is in reach. If you're not ministering to your congregation, they're going to shrivel up and die. And then community facing is outreach. Creator facing, congregation facing, community facing. And then the third is the plant or the facilities. But we are called to have stewardship and creativity so that the church itself does not become our idol. Oh, you can't. That's the communion table. Run them out on a rail. Put their glove on there, their usher glove on there. Bring them before the board. We ought to be open to adaptive reuse like this. I'm not sure, was this built as a church? This is adaptive reuse. You can have church anywhere if you have church where 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name. And it ought to be a safe space and a safe place. And again, as I said earlier, tech to me is let everything that has breath praise the Lord. I close with this. There's a book that I left and I forgot to bring, and it's entitled Leading Your African American Church Through Pastoral Transition. Leading Your African American Church Through Pastoral Transition. And it's written by Ralph C. Watkins. Forward by Samuel B. McKinney and Walter L. Parrish III. And there are several chapters in there, but my time is almost out. But he says in his first treatise there, he gives an example of a church that the pastor did not work out. And it was because they violated this. 9 traits of successful pastoral transition. Number 1, honor, respect, and celebrate the past. Number 2, maximize the church's strengths. Number 3, complete the past. Number 4, articulate the church's vision. Number 5, develop a strategic plan. Number 6, manage the dark side. All our churches and everybody got a dark side. What's in your closet? There are bones in everybody's closet, and some of them got meat on them. Commit for the long haul, do the work of ministry, and listen to God's voice. Now, things might go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road that you're trudging might be all uphill. When funds are low and the debts are high and you want to smile, but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learn, and many a failure turns about when you might have won had he stuck it out. So don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You might succeed with another blow. Success is for failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you can never tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse. You must not quit. The gospel songwriter said, don't you give up. Don't give up. Don't surrender. Keep on keeping on. And maybe one day, when all God's children get together, what a time, what a time, what a time. The mic has been dropped.
Thank you, Pastor Webster, for that inspiring lecture, and it really blended well with Dr. Reese's lecture. You've received 3 handouts, and I know we're missing 3 of the poem, but you've received 3 handouts, which the last one is the survey. We'd really like for you to fill that survey out and drop it in the box right outside of the doors now. I was in here this morning when y'all made an agreement with Dean Leggett that you would fill them out. So we want you to fill them out. Any questions before you go? And our last word will come from the Dean.
All right, come on, let's give Dr. Webster another hand. Wonderful lecture, wonderful lecture. We won't delay. It is lunchtime. And so we want to invite you to go out to wherever you're going and eat and come back at 2 p.m. for the auxiliary sessions. We do want to encourage you to take the surveys to the auxiliary session. So auxiliary leaders, I do have some to give to you because we also want to make sure that we capture what's happening there as well. And so, and then following the afternoon session from 2 to 4, and then we come back this evening at 7 p.m. And so without any further comments, go in peace. And, oh, we got some hands. I'm sorry? The auxiliary meetings are, they're on the board. Would you come and share if you have opportunity?
The women are in the fellowship hall. The ushers will be here in the sanctuary, and the men will be meeting upstairs. I believe it's on the 2nd floor. All men, pastors, preachers, ministers, all men.
Education will not meet today. We'll meet tomorrow. And so we are looking for those who want to be a part of the education conversation. We'll have that meeting tomorrow. Any other questions pertaining? There are recommendations in terms of places to eat. I think there's information outside. You know, anybody paying, I can go with you. That's the only recommendation I have. Survey, we do have more surveys, And so see Dean Barton to get a survey. You can also use the QR code as well. Let's not forget our brother with, I'm having brain freeze right now. But certainly we have a mobile bookstore outside. We want to make sure that we get books. Take care of that part. All right. I'm ready to go, y'all. Y'all ready to go? All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.